Ahoy, everyone. We are back on the whiteboard today to talk about the polling trends in Canada because we have finally had a big drop of polls over this last week that are reflecting the way that Canadians are feeling about Mark Carney's Liberal government. Carney came into office as the man to lead us through a crisis, and then he proceeded to not even pass a budget and go on a long summer vacation. He has dealt with men like Donald Trump before, and then he can't even get us a trade deal signed, and now we are currently groveling to get anything signed before the fall parliamentary session starts up. It has not been very good. And while the Liberals have been in a honeymoon phase, I think we are officially out of the honeymoon phase. Canadians have not turned on the Liberals in such a way where they're going to start having high negative ratings and they're going to fall behind the Conservatives by 10 points. But I think a lot of people are seeing that they're kind of mediocre. A lot of people will be in denial for a while, but the difference between normal polling and honeymoon polling is during a honeymoon phase, people will artificially think nice things about a new government or one that was just reelected. This one kind of feels semi new to people because it's a different leader, even if it's basically the exact same MPs. And it was just reelected. And so people were willing to say, well, let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe Carney is who he said he is. And it turns out he's not. And so now the honeymoon's ending with Canadians sort of falling back into the normal way of sort of viewing the government based on its performance. A honeymoon can end with the government still polling high. That just means that they've concluded that actually they are quite good. You know, Ralph Klein would have started off with high approvals when he first became the Alberta premier, and he stayed very high because people liked what he was doing. But today we are going to go over the trend lines in three major pollsters, Abacus Data, Innovative Research, as well as Main Street, and I can show you the deterioration of the Liberals polling, as well as the Conservatives actually starting to gain a little bit too. No doubt, Carney is still going to have a positive approval rating for a while because in so many people's minds, it's like, well, if I don't like Carney, it's like I like Donald Trump, which wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing. But goodness, there are people out there who can convince themselves that they have to like something they don't even like simply to oppose something else. But the national numbers on what party people are voting for is telling you more of a story of a little bit of buyer's remorse, considering how quickly the Liberals rose in popularity after it and how fast it's crashed down. But before I get into it, guys, I just want to remind you that if you like the show, make sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe if you are not yet a subscriber. I'm trying to hit 100,000 by mid-December of this year, and then also leave a comment on what you think about the current political situation in Canada. And no doubt there's going to be like 100 comments about the fact that I said ahoy at the start of the episode and I didn't say, hey guys, Wyatt Claypool here. I have to re-record that part like 50 times some days because you just say it so much, your muscle memory starts to mess you over every time you say it. And you're like, hey guys, Wyatt Claypool here. And you're like, why did I do that? But Wyatt, focus up. We're into the numbers now. So let's start off at the top with the polling, the last poll that Abacus did and the most recent one. Their last poll had the Liberals at 43%. And now they only have them in their most recent poll at 39%. And remember, even this 39% rating was before the capitulation on trade, and their polling period only picked up a little bit of what people were feeling during the Air Canada fiasco. So that actually may be a bit of an overpoll for them in that particular poll. But in the last poll, they had the Conservatives at 40, and this one they had the Conservatives at 41. Not a big gain, but they're maintaining what they have and gaining a little bit. And it's probably not the polling shift is demonstrating that it's mostly people not liking the Liberals. Again, politics is not about converting 50% of the people who voted Liberal last time to voting Conservative next time. It's taking 7% of people who voted Liberal last time. I don't even mean a macro 7% of the whole voting population. I just mean 7% of those who did put their ballot in for the Liberals. Switching to the Conservatives would change the entire election result, if not give the Conservatives a majority. That's all that politics is about. It's about fighting along the margins. It's about finding different demographics who are ticked off at the Liberals and converting them over to vote for the Conservatives next time. But in these polls, and now I look, goodness, guys, I have an orange marker. Last time Abacus had the NDP at 8%, and then in their most recent poll, it was at 7, with the Bloc Québécois in the last one at 6, later rising to 7. So basically, the other left-wing party vote was a pretty much stable throughout. 8-6 and then 7-7. It's exactly the same. I actually do believe in the aftermath of this whole Air Canada thing, we are going to see the NDP doing far better, no matter how crazy they are. Like in their current leadership race, the NDP are saying that you cannot have more than 50% of your 500 signatures from cis white men. It's like, or I think it's just cis men. It's like, guys, you're the NDP. Who cares? You're actually an extremely female party. It is a party for mostly female, younger to middle-aged women. And I'm stereotyping, but that's generally the demographic that is voting NDP. It's like the people who are voting PPC tend to be, working class, younger men. That is an average PPC voter. A conservative voter tends to be like middle class, working class, men and women, but leaning more men. Liberals tends to be older voters as well as a little bit more disproportionately women. But so the thing is with the NDP saying you have to have 50%, you can only have up to 50% cis men signing your signature forms for its various leadership candidates. Like, you should want a candidate who comes in with mostly men, because that's the demographic you are suffering with. But now let's jump down to innovative research. So in the last poll that innovative research did, which was a while ago, I'm making sure I'm not going too far past it because it's really been a while since they did one. So in the last innovative research poll that I can even find on the 338 Canada website, it was 43. They had it 43 for the Liberals. I'll try and write a little bit bigger as we go along. And 38% for the Conservatives. Now, in their latest poll, I don't need to fill in the NDP for you here. It just doesn't matter as much. They had the Liberals dropping down to 41, and the Conservatives rose to 39%. Now, it's not a lead like in the Abacus poll where the Conservatives started leading the Liberals by 2 points, but it is significant when you have them tightening at a time when it should be very easy for the Liberals to be way ahead of their opposition. They just won the election. They just defeated them, and yet they are already contracting in the polls right now. Do you think there was a single poll that even put the Conservatives within punching distance of the Liberals after the 2015 election with Justin Trudeau? No, not even after 2019 or 2021. Victory tends to give you a boost in the polls conducted after the election. One, people will lie and they say they voted for the winning team because people who don't know a lot about politics don't like the idea that, I voted for the wrong guys. But also you will get a lot of conservatives, or whoever is on the losing side is going to be far less likely to want to pick up the phone and tell you who they're voting for. It's just kind of embarrassing after you lost, even if it is irrational not to want to just tell a pollster who you're voting for because it's good public information. But now let's jump down to Main Street research. I like Main Street, and I actually like mea culpa. I thought they were so wrong during the election when they were showing the NDP in the block only at 6% or 5% for the block on some days, 4%. And then we had election day strike, and it was 6% for the NDP. And I was like, oh, goodness, that's absolutely pathetic. But in this most recent poll, or in their last poll, they had the Liberals at 45%. They then only had the Conservatives at 36. This is absolutely wild, the change that we have seen in this specific poll. We went from 45 for the Liberals and 36 for the Conservatives, now to being 39% for the Conservatives and 41% for the Liberals. This is a massive swing. The Liberals in this poll used to be +9, and now they are only +2, meaning that is a literal 7% swing towards the Conservatives. And the thing is that the NDP have really not benefited that much from this. Actually, they kind of have, but they went in this poll from just having I can erase a little bit of this just so you can see what I'm talking about here. But I think Main Street, I thought they wouldn't have been picking it up because other pollsters weren't picking it up. But Main Street shows that actually the NDP in the previous poll, and this demonstrates that the Air Canada issue is helping the NDP quite a bit. The NDP may be incompetent, but it was hard to fumble that Air Canada issue. As long as they showed up and picketed, they were good. They were at 6% in the last Main Street poll in June, and now they have risen to 8 points, which would be two better than the last election and would probably gain them another 2 or 3 seats. Now, if they actually pick a competent leader like Avi Lewis, I'm sad to say Heather McPherson would actually be competent. Somebody who's just loud and they're going to be brazen, they're hyper progressive, but they're also more of a union person. That person will end up eating into Mark Carney's support because Carney, and I've said this before, he has a strange ability to be on the wrong side of an issue in every way possible. Air Canada, it looked like he was siding with Air Canada against the workers, which rhetorically and aesthetically looks bad. At the same time, he wasn't even right on the policy because he also was demanding that Air Canada still make a deal. So he's ordering the workers back to work, but he also wants Air Canada to sign some agreement, even though Air Canada really doesn't have the money to do it. It is crazy how broke a lot of the airlines are. Do they still make billions a year? Well, yeah, they're large corporations. But when you're Air Canada only making 5.7%, when Carney comes in as the business wizard and his solution is just sign something with the unions and make them happy and workers go back to work, not cutting taxes, not trying to support our businesses, just kind of asking everyone, can the issue please go away for me? It's quite bad. So up here, we had the Liberal lead go from +3% to, I'll just say minus because it's now the Conservatives leading, to now -2. On this one, they used to be leading with innovative research by +5, and then they're only leading by +2. Main Street, it is a much further away poll compared to the other ones where Abacus is doing a weekly poll or a buy every other week poll. Main Street was only doing it every couple of months because we're kind of, it's a bit of a sluggish time of year. But they went from +9 to +2. So we're seeing like an average swing here of around 5 points. 7 here, we saw 3 here, and we saw 5 up here. That is not amazing for Mark Carney. And so this is also why I think we are seeing him currently attempting to make a deal with the Americans for trade and on trying to sign on to the Golden Dome, because Mark Carney is quite literally lacking wins. He just needs a win. He wants to get something on the walls of Paris right now, and he's got nothing. And so right now, with his polling deteriorating, he's actually in a dangerous position, or he's putting Canada in a dangerous position where he may actually start trying to act rashly in order to get some sort of like a win. He wants to sign something, and he's going to do it carelessly. But anyways, I'm going to erase the board here, and then I want to move on to some other points I've noticed in the recent Main Street poll. I will actually be making another poll on a recent drop that Abacus did because I thought it was very interesting. As you go through some of the issue by issue polling, you actually see a lot of Canadians think that Mark Carney is a liar, that he is not actually who he claimed to be in the election. People still may not be fully turning on him. Even here, 39% isn't terrible. It's not like Justin Trudeau when he had polls around 22 or 23%. But it's not great considering that he just got back into office. But I'm going to go do that, and then I will be back with some more stuff to show you guys. Okay, and now we're back. I'm actually not going to be going more into the Main Street research poll. I think I meant to say innovative. This one had an interesting section about what party do people most closely align with? Not in terms of national vote, but how do you see yourself? Do you see yourself as a liberal? Do you see yourself as a conservative? And this is kind of a big problem right now for the Liberal Party of Canada, is that as much as people were willing to cast a ballot for them this April, the thing is that not that many people actually really want to proudly align themselves with the Liberal Party. Back in around sort of like that January, February, March, April time, election lead up, you would maybe be able to get low 30s of people to be able to say, "Oh yeah, I'm a liberal. I see myself as a liberal." But as of today, you actually only have 24% of people, 24% of Canadians saying that they see themselves as a liberal person in terms of their political stances. Whereas with the conservatives, and this is why you are going to see the conservatives have a lot of stability over the next several years, is that 38% of Canadians see themselves as fundamentally conservative people. Now, you're going to probably have some of those people potentially voting liberal in this last election because, oh, hey, I'm trying to stop Trump, and for some reason I didn't trust Poilievre. I don't think it's as many people as you would think, but you'll get some. And here is another interesting little tidbit you get here. There are then 21% of people who are unaligned, who don't consider themselves to be close to any party. And then with the NDP, even as the party has fallen off on this rating over the last year, just because of how poorly they performed, still you get, oh my goodness, trying to write stuff and it's looking bad and the show feels bad if things look bad. You get 11% of people saying that they are NDP. This is the kind of troubling situation that Carney and the Liberals find themselves in, because in order to put together a coalition, and while I will give the Liberals credit that they're quite good at this, they only have a quarter of people saying that they are fundamentally liberal people and predisposing them heavily to voting liberal. Where these days, 38% of people are willing to say that they are conservatives. And so I don't think you're actually going to see the conservatives ever fall down in the polls over the next couple of years. The liberals may be able to lead them, but the thing is that there's a growing amount of people who see themselves as fundamentally conservative, and so they're not going to easily change who they're voting for. Whereas the liberals, they start off with 24%, which is nothing to sneeze at, but then they need to cobble together a voting coalition with 5% from the NDP, because remember, the NDP had only gotten 6% in this last election, so we assume a lot of those people ended up going over to the liberals in order to sort of like keep out the conservatives. It's almost like Jagmeet Singh was telling them to do that with how pathetically he was acting. And then you would have probably gotten another bunch of people who are unaligned to then also go and vote for the liberals. And that's what ended up putting them over the top, were these two groups of people breaking hard for the Liberal Party. But look at the chart for yourself. This is quite remarkable. This is the years after. In 2022, this is back when, if we look down here, this is, of course, when the leadership race is going on and O'Toole had just been ousted as the leader. You will see that the people identifying as conservatives, as Poilievre starts running for the leadership of the party, for the first time in a long time, conservative identity outstrips the liberals. And then in later 2023, you then see it explode. Back here, you are only seeing around 28% of Canadians say that they're conservative and probably about 30 saying that they're liberal. And now it has heavily reversed, even in the Carney era, when you're supposed to be all fired up with elbows up and fighting back against Donald Trump and the Americans. Because the problem with that being the Liberals campaign in the last election is it's fleeting. You can't do that same trick twice. And while it's disappointing the Conservatives hadn't won the last election, at least we can be satisfied in saying that you're not going to be able to have another elbows up election. That's the one little superpower that you had for that one election, and that's it. Next time, you actually need a platform. And like we have seen in my reviews of Abacus Data's issue by issue polling, in the top 9 issues, as I said yesterday in another video, in the top 9 issues, the Liberals lead on 2. They lead on Trump, which technically it's still the second biggest issue for Abacus, but it's one of those ones that's declining very quickly because you can't stay mad at Trump forever. At some point, you're going to realize, or at least a good portion of people are going to realize, that our country's problems are mostly made domestically and not in the United States. And then the second issue was environment, which I believe was like the 7th out of 9 issues. And their second place party competing with them was actually the Greens. So it was probably just people generically saying, I guess the Green Party has a green in the name, so they're probably good for the environment. And I guess Trudeau and the Liberals were super crazy about the environment, so I guess they are the best to deal with it. It's not an issue that drives a lot of votes at the end of the day. Whereas with Trump, it was a singular blinders on. I don't care about anything else but fighting Trump, and so that's why it helped the Liberals so much. You go through all the other issues. The other top issues: cost of living, the economy, crime, like the healthcare, all that stuff. Conservatives were leading by at least 2%, all the way up to 53%, I believe was the number. That was their highest margin, where you would have over 60% of Canadians who presumably would have voted for other parties saying, well, yeah, if you care about immigration, or yeah, if you care about crime, conservatives are your guys. It's like, that's kind of pathetic that some of those people then voted Liberal, even though they acknowledge on the issues that actually affect your life, the conservatives are better. But anyways, that should be it for me today in this video, guys. Thanks for sticking around this long to watch me ramble about polls. I just want to remind you that, again, if you are in Calgary on the 19th to 21st, we have the We Unify Reclaiming event at the BMO Center. If you want to buy a ticket and swing by and listen to all the other creators and organizers and policy experts talk on different issues on stage, that could be fun. Ticket link in the description below, as well as if on the 13th of September, so the other one's 19th to the 21st of this month, on the 13th of September, I will be in Abbotsford with One BC leader Dallas Brody, and we are doing a town hall in Abbotsford. So if you want to swing by for that, you don't have to live in Abbotsford, anywhere in BC if you're willing to drive out. I'd love to see you guys there. That will also be linked in the description of this video. And with that being said, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys next time.